I've been driving a vintage car, daily driving a vintage car for about a year now. And just want to talk about some of the things I've encountered and what you might encounter while daily driving a vintage car. This car is 36 years old and it's still original powertrain, original air conditioning. I never get tired of the conversations I have with people. When driving an older car, you just get a lot of old people who come up to you and reminisce with you about the 90s and 80s when they had a car like this and how much they loved it. And I always ask them, whatever happened to your car? And they say, well, it overheated and I got rid of it, or there's always a legitimate excuse for getting rid of the car. But they always, at the end of the conversation, no matter who it is, they always look at me and tell me, no matter what you do, don't get rid of the car. And this conversation's probably happened about 5 or 10 times now. And I'm not surprised now when someone stops to talk to me about the car, and in the end they tell me, please, whatever you do, maintain the car. Don't let it go. So I've been trying really hard. I've done everything I can to this car to keep it alive. When I got it, I had to change the windshield. Immediately it was cracked. My doors were both rotted out in the bottom. The weather stripping had to be changed. The engine mounts were rotted and there was almost no transmission mount left, so those had to be changed. The belts started squeaking, so I changed all the belts. I changed all the fluids, even though people warned me not to touch the transmission fluid in such an old transmission. I changed it anyway. Doesn't slip, it still shifts fine. There's a lot of things I had to get fixed. After a while, the speedometer needle started shaking and clicking. So the speedometer cable had to be changed out, and the windshield washer pump had to be changed out. And my bulbs are constantly going because I'm sure a lot of them are still original. So I'm chasing bulbs here and there that keep dying out on me. But other than that, the car drives fine. Like, it starts, it shifts, it brakes, it turns, it handles very well. I don't know why a lot of modern luxury cars have done away with the comfort part of luxury, like bench seating, for example. I don't know why they got rid of bench seating. It's so comfortably, it's the most comfortable seat in a car that I've ever experienced. I don't like bucket seats. They're good for like half an hour, but more than an hour in a bucket seat, my back's starting to hurt. And with bench seats, I can just spread out. I don't have to worry about where the seat ends or begins. It's kind of amazing, and I really hope cars in the future go back to that kind of seating. Everything about this car is just being comfortable. You have tons of leg room. The seats are comfortable. This car just sails down the road. I drive more modern cars, like my wife's Subaru, and it's just a completely, totally different visceral experience. When I turn the wheel, I have to really turn it because it has electronic power steering. It doesn't have hydraulic power steering like this car with a steering pump and fluid. A lot of things are different in modern cars that just make you appreciate them in one way, but at the same time, it makes you appreciate and like the way cars were back in the day, because they were a lot more comfy and simpler before all this technology came along. Luxury cars aren't about being comfortable anymore. Now they're about performance. You buy a really expensive Mercedes-Benz or a BMW and you see these beautiful leather bucket seats. Those seats are not that comfortable, but the car goes really fast. I think it should be the other way around. The car should just cruise nicely and be the most comfortable thing you ever sat in your life. But that's why I plan to keep this car, because traditionally this car was built for comfort, and being comfortable is nice. After working a long day at work and having to sit an hour in traffic, this car is actually really comfortable to sit in. I can almost fall asleep in it. Actually, you can fall asleep in it. If I was to lift this middle armrest right here, I could totally lay out like a bed. I could put a pillow in here and sleep. You can't do that with modern cars that have a center console shifter and this whole like thing over here. You just can't do that. Know your fluids. You get to learn the car really well. You'll learn about how often you have to do its oil changes. For some reason, this car's, whatever's going on with the car's engine, the oil loses viscosity around 1,000 miles into an oil change. My oil light will come on because the sensor is not getting enough oil on it. If I pull the dipstick, I smell some gas, so I know it's running lean, and I throw some Lucas oil stabilizer in there and the light goes off and everything's fine. You know, just check your fluids. You just know the car. Get yourself a service manual. And I don't just mean the regular owner's manual. You should have that too in PDF form, but try and find the service manual for the car. I found one on eBay for about $6, and it's been a lifesaver because you can open that book up and see pictures and diagrams with specific instructions on how to install, operate, and fix things. And a lot of the times if you take your car places to have things fixed, they're not going to have that on hand. You can provide it to them, but a lot of the times they're just going to follow the same instructions you could have done at home by yourself if you have the tools and you feel comfortable enough doing it. So service manuals is an absolute must. Knowing your fluids and watching them is an absolute must. Having a gauge cluster and knowing what's going on with your vitals is also very important. You need to know your oil pressure. You need to know your water temperature and your voltage. These are important things that unfortunately the dash of this car does not provide that information. The person who originally purchased this car did not opt for the Rally gauge cluster, which would have given all those gauges, and it would have been a lot easier to watch what's going on with the car, especially with an older car. You need to know if you're losing oil pressure, especially on the highway or while driving. Water temperature is the same thing. You want to know if your water pump's gone, your engine's overheating. Your voltage meter is very important as well. You want to know if your alternator's not charging the battery and there's something wrong with your electrical system. So, you have to watch all that stuff, and you have to expect everything to go wrong. As reliable as this car has been in the last year of driving it every single day, almost every single day at least, and I drive it 50 to 60 miles a day. It's not like a little 10-mile drive. I've learned a lot about this car. It's very reliable, but I know that at any point in time, this car could just be like, I'm done, and just stop for any reason under the hood that's 36 years old. Any little vacuum hose or valve or some spring or metal bracket holding something that's rusted and about to fall off could happen at any moment. So I try and get under there, look at everything, lubricate everything, clean up everything. I try and chase everything that I can that looks crazy to make sure that when I turn the key and I get in the car starts right away every time. It's funny how I was just talking about knowing the car, you're learning about the car, and how I know that the oil has to be changed every 1,000 miles. I found this clip here sitting on the dash when I got the car, and it had these paper service record tags in it from a service station close by in a neighboring town. And it's amazing. You can see right away in 2009 at 67,000 miles had the oil change, and then in 2010, only 1,000 miles later, oil change. 2011, oil change. 1,000 miles later every time. So I'm assuming that whatever issues going on with the engine has been for a long time, for at least 10 years. It's been chewing up the oil and running lean. So little things like that, little Easter eggs in the car can teach you a lot as well, especially if you have all the owner's manuals and stuff that came with the car.